and the status has been changed, and they are more like exchanges and cooperation with South Korea in terms of economic part, okay, economy, or even the political, like the cooperation, okay, or something. So today, the specialist in East Asia and particularly this Korean Peninsula, Dr. Sandip Mishra, okay, I invited him to be a speaker today, okay. So it's wonderful, and also I would like to introduce today's moderator, Dr. Montai Narayan Datta. Okay, Datta Montai. I met him, in fact, what 6 or 7 months ago. Okay, he attended our conference, our regular annual conference, and we enjoyed what this. Talks and also experience. Okay, and he enjoyed our conference, right, Doctor? Okay, Data. Particularly, he's interested in our topic, our agenda. Okay, my History NGO Forum, this agenda, and we exchange our views and some ideas, and I hope he will be interested in our connection with the History NGO Forum, okay, my organization. And let me briefly introduce the Dr. Montai Datta's his profile and his just the position. Okay, okay. While waiting, okay, Migang from Philippines, our History Angel Forum, his standing president. Okay, join. Welcome. Dr. Montai Narayan Datta is an associate professor of political science at the University of Richmond in the United States. He was born and raised in Los Angeles. Okay. California, and he has a BA in English literature from BC Berkeley, okay, UC Berkeley, and he got his MPP, master's degree from Georgetown, and PhD, or doctorate degree from UC Davis. Okay. His first book was Anti-Americanism and the Rise of World Opinion, Consequences for the U.S. National Interest, published in 2014 with Cambridge University Press. And his most recent publications explore the intersection of contemporary forms of slavery, for example, forced marriage, child soldiers, forced labor, and militarized arms conflicts from 1989 to the present. He's currently researching the legacy of Japanese militarized enslavement from comfort women to U.S. camp towns to human trafficking on the Korean Peninsula today. Particularly, that's why he's interested in this area, and he's visiting Korea during his sabbatical year, right? In his free time, he likes to practice meditation, as he said, and the qigong, and go to cat cafes and watch movies, right? Your hobby, okay. So I'd like to welcome and appreciate today's moderator and today's speaker. And okay, I'd like to turn this podium, this screen, to Dr. Montai Datta. Okay, okay.
Okay, Sung-ho, thank you so much for your kind introduction, and it's great to see familiar faces and new faces on this call. I just have to say, I think what I love the most about this community, going back to the NGO History Conference several months ago, where I first met Sung-ho and Sandip, is I think this community does a beautiful job at combining not only intellectual inquiry, but at the same time, just good compassion and friendliness, where you feel when you walk into the room, you are welcome. And I think the world needs much, much more of that today. I had the pleasure of getting to know Sandip at the NGO History Conference several months ago, and we were exploring dynamics between North and South Korea, and we actually had the pleasure of being roommates while we were traveling. And what I came to see is Sandip has not only an exceptional understanding of East Asian politics, but I think he has that mind, that sense of compassion that is needed to improve world affairs. Um, as somebody from the United States, I'm always a bit anxious about what will happen next. But I think we need wiser, more compassionate voices. And so I'm looking forward to today's presentation. After Sandip speaks, I'll be moderating Q&A, and hopefully we'll have some exciting back and forth. Sandip and I also share some really interesting personal connections. We are both married to beautiful, wonderful Korean wives. Although I'm still struggling to study the language. That's something I have to grow at. But I think we really have a deep personal affection for Korea. I have his biography, so let me pull that up. And Dr. Sandip Kumar Mishra is a professor at the Center for East Asian Studies, School of International Studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, India. He worked as assistant professor at the Department of East Asian Studies, University of Delhi from 2004 to 2016. He is also honorary fellow at the Institute of Chinese Studies, Delhi, and distinguished fellow at the Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies, New Delhi. He writes a monthly column named East Asia Compass at the IPCS website, and another column to the Korea Times newspaper. And actually, I was Googling just randomly Korea Times once, and I came up with one of Sandip's columns, which was exciting just to see. He completed his master's degree in international relations at JNU, and he obtained his master and doctorate degrees from JNU. He studied the Korean language in Korea from 2010 to 2006 to 2010 at Yonsei University and Sejong University. He has been a visiting fellow at the Sejong Institute in 2009 and 2016, and distinguished visiting fellow in 2018. He has also been associated with various universities and research institutes in Korea, such as the Korea National Defense University, Northeast Asia History Foundation, Kim Dae-jung Presidential Library and Museum, Institute for Far East Studies, Kyungnam University, and Korea Institute for International Economic Policy. Dr. Mishra is also interested in Track 2 processes for peace, which is really important, and reconciliation between states and communities. He received the Daegyo Cultural Foundation's award in 2016 for bringing India and Korea closer together through educational contributions. It is my great pleasure to welcome Sandip.
Good evening and good morning or whatever, I think, depending on where you are located. It's always a pleasure to be part of this History NGO Forum network and meet our old friends, also to get to know new friends. And you must have seen, it's a very generous introduction of mine, but at least one thing I would agree that both of us, Monty and myself, we are very fond of many things in Korea, Korean food, Korean culture, and we have been studying Korea for many years. I largely stay in India, but every time in summer vacation, I try to spend at least 1 month to 2 months in Korea. And I have been doing it for last almost 20 years. So it's a pleasure to speak about India-Korea, which is very quite close to my mind. I have been studying about this topic for many years. So I have made a PPT presentation. I'm going to show that some slides which are going to be useful in comprehending the lecture, which I'm going to deliver in maybe around 40 minutes. So I'll share my screen. You can
Okay.
stop in between also in case you have to, you can say, if you want to ask me anything. Can you see this slide?
Yeah, it's coming. Make it full screen.
Okay. Is it okay?
Still okay, but would you make it like a full screen?
I have made it full screen.
Not yet. It's not full screen.
Okay. I'll again try to do this.
Hello, Bernard. Okay, from Philippines. Okay.
Oh,
It's coming?
Oh, yeah, it's coming. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. So basically, today I'm going to talk about India's relations with Korea and then divided Korea. So basically, the topic was basically more about divided Korea. So basically, India's relation with South Korea and North Korea separately. But I thought that in the first part of my lecture, since it's a very varied and very knowledgeable audience, I would like to let you know India-Korea relations from the beginning till now in brief, so that we can have some more context and more, you can say, we can have some more, I think, in-depth understanding of India-Korea relations. So, if you divide, I'll take some brief, I think maybe around 5-7 minutes about this old relationship. So I have divided India-Korea relations into 3 parts: ancient period, medieval period, and modern period. And the first important connection, people say, there's a book in Korean history, very important book called Samguk Yusa. Samguk Yusa, it was written in 14th century, and this is about 3 kingdoms of Korea. So apart from 3 kingdoms, Goguryeo, Paeche, and Silla, there used to be a kingdom called Kaya. And Kaya kingdom's king Kim Suro, there are legends that he got married to a Indian princess coming from Ayodhya in India. The princess from India, she took some small artifacts to Korea, and many people say that was the first important connection between India and Korea. Apart from that, we had also there are lots of, you can say, Kim Suro story related novels and other things written. Apart from this, I think Buddhism also created a very important connect between India and Korea in ancient time. Around 372 AD, Buddhism was introduced to northernmost kingdom of Korea, that is Goguryeo, and then Paeche and Silla also accepted Buddhism as their state religion. So from 372 up to 1392, Chojan dynasty, for a very long period of time, most of the political dynasty in Korea, Buddhism was the state religion. So you can understand how Buddhism, it connected people, because in those years, lots of travelers, lots of Buddhist monks from Korea and India, they used to come to Korea. Indian monks, they used to go to Korea, and Korean monks, they used to come to Korea, India. One of those monks was actually Hecho. Hecho was basically a Korean monk who visited India, and when he went back to Korea, he wrote his experiences in India, and that book is published both in Korean, in English, and also in Hindi in India. And still, this is a very important testament that India, Korea, they were connected to each other. But then I think Buddhism declined in Korea, influence and popularity of Buddhism declined in India. And at the same time, as I told you, 1392, a new dynasty in Korea adopted New Confucianism as their state religion. So this connection actually got slightly, and the next phase of our relationship begins during colonial period, when India was a colony of United Kingdom and Korea was a colony of Japan. In that period also, both the countries, they were suffering because of colonial exploitation and colonial humiliation. And freedom fighters in both India and Korea, they were aware about each other. They talked about each other. They wrote letters to each other. I can give you the most cited example. A Nobel laureate in literature, Rabindranath Tagore from India. I think he visited several times to Japan, and in 1929, when he visited Japan, some Korean students who were celebrating 10th anniversary of March 1st movement of South Korea, they went to Tagore and they said, please write something for Korea also. And he wrote 4 lines. And in those 4 lines, he expressed that, look, at the golden time of Asia, Korea has been one of its torch bearer. And that torch is not lightening right now. We need to rekindle it again. That kind of sentiments he expressed. And that was quite encouraging for Korean people, because a Nobel laureate saying that Korea has been such an important culture civilization, and that must be again, it must regain its position. So that was very much appreciated, and the poem was published in Donga-ilbo at that point of time. I think many Korean scholars also got influenced by Tagore, and they had correspondence with Tagore. Next, actually, Mahatma Gandhi, very famous freedom fighter of India. I think Mahatma Gandhi had also, you can say, some appreciation for Korea, and Donga-ilbo president, Kim Sang-soo, actually, he wrote a letter to Mahatma Gandhi, and I think Mahatma Gandhi also replied back. You can say, actually, Kim Sang-soo invited Mahatma Gandhi to Korea, but Mahatma Gandhi, because he was occupied in some other important task in India, he said that I'll not be able to come, but I have all the best wishes for Korea's freedom struggle. Then I think several other, like if you look at the strategy during freedom struggle period, you can see in India and Korea, leaders, they were adopting similar strategy to fight colonial masters. They were saying that they were talking about satyagraha, like talking about truth. They are talking about, they were doing something called civil disobedience. They were also trying non-cooperation. So all these methods of freedom fight were used by both India and Korea, and these issues were discussed in newspapers of India and Korea during those periods. Then I think several Indian visitors also visited Korea. There was somebody called Shiv Prasad Gupta. He traveled to Korea in 1923-24, and I think he brought some pictures from there. Then I think lots of other people, they visited Korea, like not lots, but I think few people at least, and some cyclists also. They in 26, a group of Indian cyclists, they visited Korea. In 1932 also, another group of Indian cyclists, they visited Korea. So those things are there. Our first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, he also had very important and very, you can say, good opinion about Korea. And when he was writing a book, which is basically, when he was in jail, he used to write letters for his daughter, Indira Gandhi. And in one of those letters, he mentioned about Korea, and he appreciated Korean freedom fighter and Korea's freedom struggle. He was very fond of March 1st movement, Samil movement in Korea, and Indian National Congress, which was the most important institutional vehicle of Indian freedom struggle. Indian National Congress also passed resolution in favor of Korea's freedom. So I think this is basically the old, that Buddhism, Kim Suro, and then colonial connection between India and Korea. Now coming to the next part, when Korea got divided. You know that Korea got divided by outside players because of their own convenience. It's not that Korean people wanted two countries. They were happy that they got independence from Japan, but unfortunately, superpowers, they decided to divide Korea into two parts. Then I think the matter went to United Nations, and how to conduct elections in Korea. It went to United Nations some committee. So UN Temporary Commission on Korea was created, and it was sent to Korea. Incidentally, one Indian, KPS Menon, he was chairman of United Nations Temporary Commission on Korea. Then, when Korean War started, India sent, though we did not send our troops to Korea, but basically we sent our medical team to Korea. And our medical team, they tried to help all the wounded soldiers, even from North Korean side. If they were wounded, I think North Indian medical team used to help them. I think India had some constructive role in Korean War also. And then when armistice agreement was signed in 1953 July, then I think a neutral nations repatriation commission was created, and India was again chair of that neutral nations repatriation commission. So all the prisoners of war, they were given to exclusively Indian soldiers. Actually, there's an Indian custodial force. So around 3,000 Indian soldiers, they went there, and they took possession of all those almost 20,000 prisoners of war, both from North Korean side and South Korean side. And by one, asking them whether they want to go to North Korea or South Korea, or maybe third country. Successfully, India was able to conduct and complete this task. Actually, Syngman Rhee, first president of South Korea, in the beginning, he was not very happy of India's involvement. But when India successfully completed this task, he also appreciated India's role in Korea, resolving this prisoners of war issue. You can see there are some pictures here. Actually, India released one stamp also in those days, where 60 parafill ambulance, which was the division of medical unit, which was sent to Korea. So celebrating their successful, you can say, participation in Korean War, India also, and in Korea also, time to time, older people in Korea, they remember India's contribution, and they do appreciate India's contribution in Korean War. Then after that, actually, you know that like Korea got divided, and 54, actually, prisoners of war issue were resolved. And then you can see that I think Korea and India, they got, you can say, slightly distant from each other. Why they got distant from each other? There could be many explanations, but the most important is basically that, look, both the country were newly independent country. India got independence in 1947 and Korea got independence in 1945. India got its republic in 1950. Korea became an independent republic, Republic of Korea, South Korea, and DPRK in August and September 1948. So and then Korea had to go through a war which was very devastating, and India or Pakistan also had a war that was also quite difficult for India. So overall, we got occupied in our own, you can say, domestic affairs. So this was the primary reason why India and Korea, we got distance from each other. Then I think there were other, you can say, if you look at what kind of, you can say, relationship India had with Korea, India was basically saying that our relationship with Korea, like, we are not going to favor either North Korea or South Korea. We know, all of you must be aware that India was having what is called non-alignment policy. We were founding member of non-aligned movement, and we had this idea that world is divided into two camps, American camp and Soviet camp. We don't consider that that is the right way to go forward. We should create a third front where I think countries should be independent to choose their partners as per their own national interests. So in the sense, if we are cooperating with Soviet Union on certain issues, we must have liberty to cooperate with American group also, American bloc also, if on some other issue. So that kind of approach India had. But Korea, South Korea and North Korea, both the regimes, they had a very strict opinion that either you recognize them or the other one. So basically, it's a kind of, say, what is called, in Germany, there was something called Hallstein Doctrine, that you recognize either East Germany or West Germany. You can't recognize both. And India had this opinion that, look, we are we are going to recognize both of you or none of you. So this was also another, you can say, variable why India and Korea, they remain slightly distant to each other. As Professor Kang mentioned, Professor Kang knows about India a lot more than many of us. He always keeps surprising me about his insight about information about India. So he told that how India was in Cold War days overall, we were more close to North Korea than South Korea. Even though, suppose till 1973, India and Korea, we did not have any diplomatic relationship. In 1962, we did have some, you can say, diplomatic mission. It's called consulate level relationship. But full ambassador level relationship happened between India and Korea in 1973. And be it 1962, be it 1973, both the occasions, India established consulate level relationship or ambassadorial level relationship with Korea, both the Korea simultaneously. So India stuck to its point, and basically we had a very, I think, with India and North Korea, I think during Cold War time, I think both of them were newly independent. Both of them, they're looking for independence of their foreign policy. Actually, and North Korea was openly a socialist country, and India was also having socialist mode of economy. Our polity was not socialist. Socialist party was there in Indian politics, democratic politics, but basically, but our economic model was basically socialist model. Nehru was quite influenced by socialism. He visited Soviet Union, and he had, you can say, deep regard for socialism. I have a picture which probably will help you to understand that how India and North Korea, they were having convergence. Like economic system, India wanted a socialist kind of economy. North Korea also, in the beginning, they were talking about Marxism-Leninism. 1948 Constitution of North Korea, it talked about Marxism-Leninism. In 1972, they added Marxism-Leninism plus Juche. And in 1992, North Korea, they left Marxism-Leninism. Now they say this North Korea is going to be governed as per the ideology of Juche. So this was socialist connections was there. Both of them they were looking for. If you look at India's non-alignment policy, and if you look at Juche, in Juche also, if you translate Juche roughly in English, the Juche ideology of North Korea could also be translated as self-reliance, self-realization. Like we are going to decide our destiny, our path, our future course. Both India and North Korea had also similar opinion about somehow creating solidarity among third world countries. Both the country in those days, I think many of you must be aware about those debates when they used to talk about new international economic order. It was basically 60s, 70s, 80s, you can see new international economic order where I think it's not dominated by big players alone. The middle powers and smaller powers in Asia and Africa, Latin America, they must be also be part of deciding this new economic order. There were also talks in those days, Cold War days, about South-South cooperation. North means developed country, South means basically developing country. So there was, at one point of time, there was North-South dialogue, but when North-South dialogue did not materialize, we started talking about South-South cooperation, and both India and North Korea, we were supporting the similar positions. In G77, a group of 77 countries, here also India and North Korea were part of the same group. And in non-aligned movement also, North Korea became member of non-aligned movement. India was founding member. So I think these were the platforms where we had similar opinion. You can see that in India, I think we have still, I think India is not very well known, but India is still having Juche Study Society. So I think many people, they allege that basically North Korean embassy in India, they fund these activities. But I think still some small events they keep doing every year. So I think we have some connection with North Korea. But at the same time, we also need to realize that it doesn't mean that India and North Korea were so close to each other that there were some structural regions which were pushing India and North Korea towards each other. But I think on several occasions there was some divergence also. For example, the relationship between Third World and USSR. India was of the opinion that Third World should have equidistance with both US and Soviet Union, whereas North Korea was of the opinion that Third World is going to be more supported by Soviet Union, so it should have more proximity with Soviet Union. India did not support that kind of idea. Similarly, North Korea kept on demanding that foreign troops they should be removed from South Korea. And in one of the non-aligned movement summit meeting, it tried hard to bring this issue into final declaration, but India opposed that idea. India said that, look, we are not going to talk about foreign troops in other countries because there are much more complicated presence of these foreign troops. And until unless we talk about those complexities, you can't just say that foreign troops blanket, they should not be allowed in any foreign country. Similarly, about South Korea, we had also quite respectable relationship. We always believe, even in Cold War days, that South Korea is a friendly country, whereas North Korea, they had a different opinion about South Korea. They consider that South Korea is not an independent country, it's basically a stooge of America. So that kind of divergence we had about. Then I think about democracy, you know that our political democracy has been very vibrant and dynamic from the independence itself. Whereas in North Korea, you can see how gradually the regime was becoming authoritarian and personality cult of Kim Il-sung was getting created in North Korea. About Pakistan also, I think in later days of Cold War, we can see that North Korea trying to reach out Pakistan, which is not a friendly country of India for a very long period of time. So these are some divergence also which we had between India and North Korea. About Pakistan and China, North Korea connection, I think that is also problematic. India had a war with China in 1962, and but I think North Korea did not criticize China on that, and basically it criticized rather India. So India was unhappy with that. Overall, I think I can describe it further in case it's required, but I think India was unhappy the way North Korea was having friendly relationship with China as well as Pakistan. And I think that created some kind of... On nuclear program also, this is basically more contemporary, but we'll talk about that later. So overall, you can see that 1950s, our relationship started, and this is basically a perceptual map, nothing to take it very seriously, but relations started improving between India and Korea. And somewhere in the early 1970s, India and North Korea, they were closer to each other more than any time else in history, and then started going down. Now, I think we do maintain diplomatic relationship with North Korea. I think right now, because of COVID, Indian embassy in Pyongyang was shut down, but there are chances that in future, India may restart its embassy in Pyongyang. Similarly, North Koreans, they are having their embassy in India, New Delhi. So I think those relationships have been there, but they are very cold, very limited. So in post-Cold War era, there are lots of, you can say, you look at our economy first. Indian economy, which was largely a socialist economy, that was changed to a much more liberalized economy. So we globalize our economy, we liberalize, we open up our economy. Then this created a kind of different atmosphere of India. Now India was looking at South Korea as more important partner than North Korea. Similarly, there were in 1990s, there were reports that Pakistan and North Korea, they are having some kind of technology transfer related to missile and nuclear technology. And that was really a bad news for India. And that also created a kind of gap between India and North Korea. So even if we maintain relationship, our relationship has been very limited. To just enumerate some of the small exchanges we had with North Korea in last maybe 10 years. I think North Korean foreign minister in 2015 he visited. Now 2016, by the way, 2016 actually India became the second biggest partner, trading partner of North Korea. And this gives you a very, you can say, misleading information, because second means the second most important, actually more than even Russia. But the fact of the matter is that because of sanction and others, I think with Russia trade became problematic, and in like China was number one, and with China, North Korea was having more than 8 billion, 9 billion trade, whereas with India just 120 million, but still it was number two. So it happened because of some, you can say, technical reason, but otherwise, our Minister of State, Foreign Minister of State, like in a way, Deputy Foreign Minister kind of thing, you can say, he visited Pyongyang in 2018, and 2018, when American Foreign Secretary Rex Tillerson, he came to India, and he told our Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj that why don't you close your embassy to North Korea? And Indian Foreign Minister replied that we should not close down our embassy to North Korea, because whatever you want to do with North Korea, if you want to reward North Korea, if you want to punish North Korea, if you want to communicate with North Korea, I think some kind of connections are required. And I think this would not be a good idea to close embassy. And time to time, India had been providing some humanitarian assistance. I think 2011 also we provided some kind of food aid to North Korea. 2014-15 also we provided some food aid to North Korea. 2020 we provided some kind of, say, TB medicine to North Korea. I think so many exchanges have been there. Now coming to India and South Korea, I think in post-Cold War, I think situation, lots of things they changed. The first thing I told you that Indian economy changed. Actually, the biggest problem, or rather biggest obstacle in India-South Korea relations was that South Korea from Park Chung-hee period pursued an economic model which was relying more on export. So they wanted to send their products outside and sell there. And India was a closed economy. So India did not want any investment, any trade with, let's say, big trade with South Korean companies. At the same time, South Koreans were also not interested because India was such a closed economy. So that created a big hurdle, and that was removed in the post-Cold War era. Indian economy, it went to a crisis mode in 1990, and then I think India reformed its economy, and we also adopted liberal open economy. And now this became a very important, because South Korean companies, they were looking for a new market, and India was also looking for foreign trade and investment. So that was one important change which happened in post-Cold War era. The second important change happened that India was a socialist model of economy. Like basically, somehow we were closer to Soviet Union in the Cold War period. We had some treaty with Soviet Union, and India was considered to be quite, you can say, close partner of Soviet Union. We had distance with America, but with collapse of Soviet Union, that you can say political region also got diluted. Now India started having better relationship with United States, and our relationship after 1991 till now, it has increasingly improved, and we have been cooperating in all possible areas, be it economy, security, space research, critical technology. So almost every sphere, India and America relations have improved. South Korea and America were already security ally of each other. So our relationship with America improved. Our relationship with Soviet Union got slightly, you can say, reduced, and that helped India, South Korea to come close to each other. And then I told you that in Pakistan and North Korea, they were having some technology transfer. And basically, there is a saying in international relations that your enemy's friend is basically your enemy's friend is your enemy also. So in the sense, suppose India consider Pakistan as a rival country, And if Pakistan is connected with North Korea, so North Korea also becomes a rival country. And if North Korea and Pakistan, they are cooperating, India gives also, it gives some kind of push to India, South Korea also to come close to each other and cooperate with each other. So I think, oh, sorry, what happened? Yeah. So I think India, Korea, we started having in post Cold War era, started having our relationship quite improved. If you look at last 35 years of India-South Korea relations, roughly you can say that basically in the beginning, economic incentives were much more primary. In the beginning, from Indian side, India also in 1993, India announced something called Lucas policy. So idea was that we should engage East Asian countries, Southeast Asian country more, so that we can have, and in the beginning, the focus was on economics. Similarly, South Korean companies also, they were the first ambassador of South Korea who came to almost every city of India. And right now, they are everywhere. So sometimes I can tell you one incident. My grandmother, who passed away a few years back, I think she used to stay in a village, remote village of India. And once I told her that, Grandma, do you know what is Korea? She said, no, I have never heard about Korea. But then I asked, do you know Samsung? She said, yes, we have a Samsung television. So in the sense, the Korean companies have been also very, very important, I think, tools and basically medium through which India and Korea got connected. You know that in 2009, India signed FTA with South Korea. 2010, it became applicable. 2010, India and South Korea, we also had strategic partnership agreement. And when Narendra Modi visited Korea in 2015, this strategic partnership agreement was further, you can say, enhanced to special strategic partnership agreement. Almost all the top leaders of both Korea and India recently, because first time Indian Prime Minister Narasimha Rao, he visited South Korea in 1993. Before that, no top leader from South Korea or India visited each other's country. But then 96, Kim Il-sung came to India. Then I think our president went to Korea. Then President Nomu Hyun came. So almost all the next president, Nomu Hyun, Lee Myung-pak, Park Geun-hye, Moon Jae-in, and I think maybe this year, President Yoon Suk-yeol is also supposed to come to India. Similarly, all Indian prime ministers have been multiple times to Korea. I think you can see that how from economics to strategic and political issues have been covered by both the countries. These are some I told you about that how what changed and why India and South Korea, they became more important, more close to each other than India and North Korea. Then I think bilateral trade has also grown. Now I think 2022 figures are not given, but I think almost 28 billion trade we have, which is good if you compare it with the past, but I think it is not satisfactory if you look at what potentials we have and how we can lots of Korean investment in India and Indian investment in Korea have been also there. And in defense strategic securities field also, India and South Korea, we have been cooperating. Lots of different layers of institutional dialogues have been happening between India and South Korea. Lots of, you can say, naval and other, you can say, exchanges have been happening between South and North Korea, South Korea and India. We have been also having joint production of defense equipment and lots of other areas, which in details, in case you want, we can discuss. And now, finally, I will end my paper by giving the general, you can say, summary of my presentation. that we had a long and deep relationship in history. In medieval period, I think we got slightly disconnected, but in Korean War, again, India got involved in Korean thing. And then during Cold War period, we were tilted towards North Korea, but in post-Cold War period, even though we maintained relationship with North Korea, some symbolic, I had chance to visit North Korea in 2013. So we have a small embassy, and in the embassy, not more than 3 or 4 Indian employees are there, including ambassador. It's a small embassy, some symbolic things, hardly any bilateral, very limited visits from North Korean side to India or Indians to North Korea happens. But we do maintain. But with South Korea, India's relations have improved, like you can say, very rapidly. But many scholars, they say, people from economics, people from political science, and people from security study, they say that we have lot more potential to cooperate with each other. In case that is required, I'm going to elaborate further. But I will say that India and South Korea, India's connection with Korea has been very, very, I think, unique. And India has a very respectful, you can say, opinion about Korea. India is still uncomfortable to accept that Korea is divided, and India always wishes that Korea one day will be reunited, and peace and reconciliations are going to be the only way forward. So I'll stop myself here, and I'll be happy to listen your comments and questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Mishra. That was, I think, a very eye-opening conversation. I think we've probably got a lot of questions and a lot of directions where things could go. Let's open things up. We are virtual, so we have a chat box. So I'd like to invite either participants to feel free to write questions in the chat box, or if you wish, you can raise your physical hand or your virtual hand, and I'll call on you. And when I call on you, I'd like to invite you to share your name, your position, and then your question. So let me pull back for a moment, and although I've got, I think, 3 questions myself, but I'll just pull back for a moment and let's see what arises. I think in that case, to get things started, let me ask Dr. Mishra, and this is, I think, somewhat related to some of my own research interests. When I think about South Korea today, or wherever I go in South Korea and I have these discussions with people, there's a constant sense of the legacy of Japan. Whether it's anti-Japanese sentiment or the comfort women issue or a sense of competition with Japan. What intrigues me as a post-colonial nation, as a post-colonial nation, when I think about the relationship with India and the United Kingdom, whenever I've traveled in India, I don't get the sense that that shadow of imperialism is as heavy. If anything, some people I've met in India, they speak very affectionately of the United Kingdom and some of the infrastructural changes made during the rule of the British Empire. So I guess my question is, what, if anything, can Korea learn from the Indian experience in reconciling with Japan?
Okay, I think a very good question, and I also had lots of, you can say, thought about it. Though I did not read much about this issue, but actually I thought about this issue, and I have my own theory. So basically, I will share my theory with all of you. There are a few reasons actually why India is not so critical about UK, and we don't remember, you can say, like United Kingdom as a kind of say a rival country or that kind of thing. One is basically we need to realize that one is basically simple, the distance. Like UK, they came to India and they left India. So now there's no UK out, you can say, around us. So we have our own rivalry with neighboring country. So they are not neighboring country. In case of Korea, it was a neighboring country, Japan, who colonized, and they are still there. They are still territorial and other issues which have been always, you can say, disputed by both the parties. So that one, the distance, like it was an outside player which came and it went back. That's one reason. The second, I think, reason which I can think about is that normally what happens that throughout the history before Meiji Restoration, Korea always considered to be more civilized country than Japan. It was a Sino-centric order, so basically Korea was closer to Japan, and most of the important cultural influences either they originated in Korea or they came to China before they went to Japan. So Korea was always considered that they are more superior and you can say respectable people. And when they were colonized by Japan, their ego got hurt actually. So that is also a very important. They never thought that somebody, in case of India, especially in modern history, somehow because of lots of reform and reformation and other, you can say, industrial revolution and other things in Europe, somehow India was backward and Europe was advanced. That kind of image was there. And that created a kind of acceptance also in India that basically superior people, they are coming to us and they are trying to maybe help us. So that kind of, let's say, saying that colonized by a superior or inferior, you can say imperial power. That could be another reason why I feel that Korea and India, they have different opinion. The third could be that, actually, when we teach and some professor they tell us this story that if you don't have any option but you have to become a colony, then I think it's best to become a colony of United Kingdom, and it's worse to become a colony of Japan. Actually, Japan was a late comer and they had to catch up in exploitation in all those things, and actually they wanted to Japanize Korea. They wanted to abolish Korean culture, Korean language, Korean even names. During the Second World War, when war started, and just before that, around that time, there was an official order from government of Japan saying that all Koreans, they change their name to say a Japanese name. So just a minute. So I think that created a kind of say, in case of UK, like Britishers, when they came to India, they hardly interfered in Indian social cultural life. So in like say in Korea, you must have heard that many Yangbans, they were basically forced to cut off their ponytails, which they were very unhappy. So I think that created a kind of, you can say, sense of humiliation in Korean people, and that basically sustained that remain, you can say, there, which is not there in case of India. And lastly, I will say that look, again, this could be a, you can say, wrong point. I think just you can, but in case actually what happened that in case of India, we have this satisfaction, whether it's true or not, but we have this satisfaction that we had a long freedom struggle movement and we were able to throw Britishers out of India. So we have this sense of fight and basically we won. Probably in Korea, I think it because Japan lost in Second World War and Korea got independence. So this sense that basically finally we were able to defeat Japanese and send them back, that is probably not there in Korea. So these are some of the reasons I think which comes to my mind. But overall, I think it's a very complicated issue. It's a very emotional issue. And rather than I'm going to teach anything to Korea, I will say that, I think Japan must also learn that this was a period when lots of bad things happened. And until unless you accept those bad things it would be difficult to move beyond those things. And especially, I will request, I can say, in case I have any access to those politicians in Japan, that unnecessarily not to use this issue to mobilize their political support, because it basically hurts lots of people in different parts of Southeast Asia also. So these are some submissions I have.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mishra. I'm suddenly reminded, from what you're sharing about the genius of Gandhi, and I wonder what techniques or strategies might be utilized today in Korea that
May I,
follow.
may I add? I probably left that issue. Mahatma Gandhi, you named. I think he had also, the freedom struggle of India was largely led by Mahatma Gandhi for a very long period of time, and he had a principle called hate sin, but not the sinner. So if there is anything bad somebody is conducting, so you should basically dislike that particular bad activity, bad action, not the person who is committing that bad action, because ultimately he or she is also a human being. So I think this is also a very interesting thing which you reminded me about Mahatma Gandhi, and which was guiding principle of our freedom movement.
Yeah, I'm reminded of a recent trip to Hiroshima, and I saw these beautiful Japanese children learning a very limited history of World War II. And like you're saying, these are innocent children. So how do you move forward wisely whenever I'm in Korea, there is, I mean, sometimes outright animosity against Japan. I wonder, yeah, so I appreciate your comments as we think about just how to heal when Japan, is more or less engaging these denialist narratives.
Mm.
Um, Let me pull back now and see if things are popping up. People can feel free to raise your virtual hand or use the chat box. Otherwise, I've got a couple of more questions, but I don't want to monopolize the conversation. Yes, Dr. Kang, Sung Ho.
Muted. You are muted, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mishra. Your presentation, I learned a lot from your presentation as a Korean. Okay, I learned the new, some of the facts. Okay, particularly the like during the colonial uh, rule period, like some exchanges, like some Gandhi's reply to the president of Dongailbo. He's in fact the founder of the Korea University, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Korea University. And of course, we know the what the Tagore, okay, the Nobel laureates, the poem for the Korea. Everybody knows about the poem, okay, because it's appear in our the textbook. But the other like a cyclist, visit Korea or something is very new and very interesting. Uh, and yeah, our connection, you also explain about all this like the historical part chronologically, okay. The Suro, the King Suro, the 2,000 years ago, almost 2,000 years ago. We don't know exactly it's like a legendary story or not, but the symbolically is very important, like a connection between Korea and India. Okay, the princess, married to the Korean, the ancient time, the king Suro. Okay, and. These days, even the many Koreans visit India. Compared with like academic, like the students some studying in India, more population, particularly Buddhist. Okay, Korea, we have three major religious groups. First one is like Christianity and of course Catholic, and the Buddhism, Buddhist. About 30% of the Korean population are Buddhist, as far as I know, and they go for the pilgrimage. Okay, there are large group, and but compared with the China, okay, China, India, like big kinds of like a future our some economic the powers and for our collaboration. But the Korea used to pay attention to the China at the beginning. Of course, still we depend on the our economic exchanges with China is the largest, okay, compared with even the United States. In terms of our political ally, political the connection is most important with the United States, but economic like a cooperation or the exchanges, we have more, some this exchanges with the China, but like our some the ideological or some what China and Korea always, geopolitically is very important, very neighboring country. But since the, Moon Jae-in, the Republic, okay, Moon Jae-in, President Moon, they pay attention to more like India, right? We call it the Southern policy. And now the President, the Yoon, he changed these kinds of the policy like Indo-Pacific, some policy or something, right? Including the India. So, but still, I think the economic exchanges or investment or something is increasing. But how about the the young people who would like to learn about India, because still I think the large population of the Korean the students, they study in China, right? But it's decreased a little bit compared with the previous time, because they thought it's the very very the promising, and China is emerging as like economic power. But we think the India has potential, right? And we more pay attention to India. But I'm afraid still around me or in Korea, not many the Indian specialists, okay, the specialists who know the India very well. So how about so Dr. Mishra, okay,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good question. It's true that India and South Korea relations, they have improved in different domains. But as you mentioned, that it would be critical if we are more connected through our culture. People to people connections are very important. And especially for that, more and more Indian students going to Korea, more and more Korean students coming to India. These are going to be very critical in future. Unfortunately, demand is very high. From Indian side also, lots of students, they want to go to South Korea. But from Indian side, we don't have enough financial resources. And all the students who want to go, most of them, they want some kind of scholarship from South Korea. But they can't be given, actually, all the students, they can't go to there and have scholarship. Similarly, from South Korean side, lots of students, they are now interested in going to India, because in India, the medium of education is English. So it's quite attractive for Korean students to come. And in general, I think the content of education in India is quite good. The infrastructure may be very bad. If you compare it with Europe or say Japan or Korea or North America, infrastructure is not very good. But the content, the lecture quality, the books quality, the way we have been discussing and debating, and I think it's quite satisfactory. So I think India could be a cheaper choice for South Korean students to come and study, let's say maybe 1/4 or 1/5 of the price which they have to pay if they want to go to a European country or North American country. So I think it's a good. But the biggest problem for South Korean students is money is not again the big problem, because it's a cheaper. But actually, Indian infrastructure situation is not very good. So if you look at Indian universities, what kind of facilities they have for general or say foreign students, how much you can say security, how much you can say, uh, let's say, diversified food items are available to them. how much you can say other, you can say conveniences they are going to, because India is a hot country compared to South Korea. So all these facilities must be maintained and produced in, like it could be given in by Indian side. Then only I think more Korean students, because they are willing to come. Actually, once I talked to Indian, say Korean ambassador in India, and I told him that you can, and I talked to Indian authorities also, say if 50 universities of India in different cities, they have some collaboration with Korean companies, and they can have a one foreigner, hostels for foreigner, maybe 500, 600, 800 students in one university, 1,000 student capacity. And that would be constructed by, say, some Korean company, because anyway, Korean company, they are doing lots of help to promote cultural and other exchanges between India and South Korea. So I think they can build those hostels in different parts of India, different cities, and foreign students and Koreans will be preferred there. There would be some reserved seat for Korean students. And because I think Korean students, when they come to India, I realize, I have met hundreds of them, the biggest problem is they are unhappy because of Indian infrastructure. So India needs to work on that by its own, or maybe Korea should assist India to address this issue. If it happens, it's very important, because young minds, if they are connected to each other, then probably they will learn from each other's rich culture. And it's also important because South Korea is an OECD country. I have seen younger generation in South Korea, they are not very much aware about poverty, illiteracy, diseases. And if they have some experience in India, they will have much more, you can say, compassion for what's happening in Latin America, what's happening in Africa, what's happening in other parts of the world. And they will realize that how blessed they are. And if they are compassionate enough, they can think about doing something for humanity in general. So I think it's good for their making them good human being also.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, your comment, Dr. Mishra, reminds me, I was briefly passing through India in January. I was in the south in the city of Oroville, and there were these Korean peace builders there raising their children. And it made me really appreciate how much more Korean tourists could learn from India if they went in that direction. There's so much culture to appreciate and so much to look at in terms of a country that's still, there's more than 1 billion people in India, so there are lots of infrastructural, socioeconomic dynamics to consider that I think for Korea, they being a much physically smaller nation, those challenges have been more easily resolved. Kan Mikio, I don't think we've met. Nice to meet you. Let me invite you to jump in.
Nice to meet you. Thank you very much for the very deep, very deep presentation, and I enjoyed to know the relationship between India and the Korean Peninsula, and but I have to feel very sorry when I think of the relationship between the Korea and Japan. I mean, colonial age and etc. Just a moment. And my question is that is it okay to think the relationship between India and North Korea, and also the one between India and South Korea is both are both sort of good? You have a good relation between the two North and South Koreans.
Yeah, I think first, I think I'm very, very happy to see you again. I think,
Yeah,
yeah, seeing you after a long time. So Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, and wish you happy, fast recovery. You will become again a vibrant and dynamic member of our group. And your question about, uh, I feel that India is, so, there are lots of problems in India, and people may say in short run that we are taking one side or another side. For example, I told you about Tagore, Rabindranath Tagore, Nobel laureate, who wrote good things about Korea. But I think Tagore has also very strong love for Japan and Japanese culture. He visited multiple times, maybe 3 or 4 times to Japan. He visited in those days, 1910s and 20s and 30s. He visited Japan, and he had lots of conversation with Japanese scholars. So he liked many parts of Japanese culture, but militarization part he was not very comfortable with, and he used to disagree with many Japanese scholars, saying that this is not done this way. You are not going to be leader of Asia's future. So those things have been there. So in India, I think we have I will say that India, being a big country, being a multicultural country, somehow Indian general nature is that we don't take extreme uh, stands. India overall, you will see that actually Buddhism also started in India, and Buddhism had also a very interesting principle called middle path. So middle path is basically when you have lots of diversity, you have lots of opinion, you have lots of disagreement, then middle path is probably the right path and more pragmatic and practical path. Similarly, our tradition this has. So rather than liking North Korea, disliking North Korea, liking South Korea, disliking South Korea, I think somehow in India, when we were talking about non-aligned movement also, that also emanates from Indian psyche, that take a middle path, don't take extreme, you can say, position. So I think we have been from very beginning on Korean issue, division of Korea. We never accepted division in the beginning. We tried that both people who were supporting Marxism-Leninism ideology and people who were supporting liberal democracy in Korea, they should come together and they should make their own country. There could be ideological differences, but they can. So I think overall, I think India, we maintain good relations with South Korea, but our relationship, which was very vibrant in Cold War days, that is no longer so vibrant. I think very few, 3-4 people in Indian embassy in Pyongyang and 2-3 people in North Korean embassy in New Delhi. But still, for formal sake, formally we do have relationship with. We have been maintaining relationship with North Korea. Right now, I told you 2021, Indian embassy got closed in Pyongyang because of COVID. So, but it's closed because of COVID. Otherwise, no other problems. So maybe soon we are going to restart it. So we have kind of say we don't accept North Korea becoming a nuclear power, or say the way they are provocatively trying to test their missiles, creating instability in the region. But at the same time, India's position is that all these issues must be resolved through negotiation, talks, and diplomacy. So this is our position, and but with South Korea, we have lots of convergence in economics, in politics, on strategic issues. Uh, Professor Kang Seung-ho mentioned about Indo-Pacific strategy. I think there also India and South Korea, we have been quite common stand. If you look at India and Japan position on Indo-Pacific strategy, it seems to me that India's position is closer to South Korea than Japan. So this is though Japan and India both are part of Quad. So I think we try to, this is probably Indian long habit that we try to make some kind of, say, middle path, and I think this is good. And sometimes this is not very effective also. So sometimes somebody may say that not very productive, but not very effective. But in long run, I feel that our middle path, it helps India, and that's what our nature is.
I see. So I have another question, standing on the point, and the situation in the East Asia seems to be fragile, and the leaders of the East Asia. I do not try to mention the leader of Korea, but some countries have not extremely wise leaders. So something may happen by some accident or some small things from some small things. So if the India has strong relation with South Korea and also has some relation with North Korea, India could play a good role to how to say that, to make friendship again with the North and South Korea, and also with also the relationship between North Korea and Japan.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very valid thing, and I do feel that India could play some constructive role because India have connection with both the countries. The only problem, actually, there are two problems. One is that sometimes if India tries to become more active in resolving North Korean issue, then I think especially China will be unhappy with that more activism of India. And that would lead to further complication rather than resolution of the issue. So India is aware about that China would not take it positively. So we want to resolve the issue, not complicate the issue. So that's one problem. Secondly, India also feels that we can do some role, but we are not very sure how much capability right now we have. We are talking so many things, but still, if you look at India's economic capabilities, they are very limited. If you look at India is the fourth biggest economy of the world, but that is in GDP term. But if you divide into per capita income, then India is still a poor country. So I think we are not very sure about our capacity, and that's why we are reluctant to do that. But overall, having all these problems, we do feel that, as you mentioned very rightly, that by accident, the way North Korean regime had been conducting itself. So something unexpected may happen and it will endanger lives of millions of people in East Asia. So it's really a big danger. India's position is that even if suppose India directly doesn't get involved, but our position is that since the issue is very serious and all the options which Japan, South Korea, or say United States, or at least these three countries, they are very much interested in resolving North Korean issue. So US, Japan, and South Korea, they need to first accept that all the solutions are imperfect solutions. Suppose if they are having very strong policy of sanctions on North Korea, and North Korea implodes, something happened in North Korea, then I think it's not going to be a good scenario. Similarly, so overall, all the options are bad, but the best option among all the problematic options, imperfect options, could be that they need to have some connection with North Korea. Kim Jong-un is really a very unpredictable leader. He's still, I don't consider him that he's very well versed in international relations. So I think he has very limited, you can say, understanding of world politics. But I think the solution is to have communication with North Korea rather than cutting off communication with North Korea. So right now, the regime in South Korea, like President Yoon Suk-yeol in South Korea, even Fumio Kishida, Prime Minister in Japan, I think Fumio Kishida proposed that he's ready to talk to North Korea, and I was happy with that, because by communicating with your rival, somebody with whom you are having disagreement, Then only you can come out with some solutions.
Yeah.
Creating gap means creating more possibilities that some accident may happen, and that would be really dangerous for all of us.
May I add my perspective about the, the relations, I mean, connection with India, India's connection with the two Koreas. Already, while listening to the Dr. Mishra's presentation, the India is more close to South Korea, like through Quad. Okay, Quad is more like I think the role of America, U.S. The factors I think is very important in the like some the international military or diplomatic relations or strategy. Instead, the North Korea is close to more like Pakistan. Already you mentioned Pakistan. They are developing or exchange for this nuclear, development, and the China role of China, because India and China they are rivalry relations, and the USA would like to more like what do you call this strategy, like contain or strategy or something. That's why they would like to more like just deepen their relations with India. Okay, India and Korea and the USA is political or military alliance ally, and Japan, America is ally. So there are some kinds of confrontation or some the different blocks, okay, different blocks like China, Pakistan, and North Korea. Even sometimes Russia, okay, like kinds of already in the Korean Peninsula, there are two different blocks, okay, like confrontation. USA, Korea, Japan is one block, okay, like one block. We call it like ocean, okay, power. And North Korea and China, Russia is like different block, okay, like confrontation. It's still is valid, okay, still valid, okay. So I think the India join this the Korean South Korean bloc, Pakistan, close to this North Korean bloc. I felt so while listening to your presentation, okay, Dr. Mishra. Okay, what do you think of that?
No. But I will say that India is not one thing. One important, I think, point we need to remember that in 1990s there were reports that Pakistan and North Korea they exchanged missile and nuclear technology. North Korea received some uranium enrichment facilities and other things, and Pakistan received some missile technology. They made their Gauri missile out of Nodong missile of North Korea. But after that, we don't have any evidence that North Korea, like say in last 20 years, we don't have much report or information that at this point of time, Pakistan and North Korea, they are still having military exchanges. So that's one thing I would like to submit. And the second thing, India doesn't believe in this bloc politics. So we consider that, look, we don't want to become part of US, Japan, South Korea friendship circle. We are friend of US, Japan, South Korea. At the same time, we are going to have our connection with North Korea. And in case there is some misunderstanding, some rivalry between South Korea and North Korea, that kind of connections are going to be useful. They are going to be constructive. Because if we are making blocks, then I think rivalries are going to continue. Misunderstanding, misperceptions are going to continue. So it's better to communicate, have connection with rival countries rather than and trying to bring them together. So that kind of role India, like say many people, they criticize our India's foreign policy vis-a-vis Russia in Ukraine crisis, because we have still maintained our connection with Russia. So lots of people, and I do have also, because India should have much more stronger position But at the same time, I think this is guided by this principal stand that even if there are rivalries, in the rivalries we need to create, we need to maintain bridges which are there rather than destroy those bridges, because ultimately when you have to walk, then I think those bridges are going to be important.
Okay. Thank you.
We also have a question in the chat box.
Yes, yes.
Dr. Seward writes, thank you for an excellent presentation. And the question is, I would like to ask your opinion. What would you see as a big hurdle for Korean unification?
Korean unification, basically, it happened because external powers, as per their own strategic preferences, they decided to divide Korea. So Korean unification at this point of time is not possible between just South and North Korean regimes. Other players, regional players, including United States, they are also equally important player in Korean unification process. So overall, there are going to be South Korea, North Korea, and 4 other countries minimum: US, China, Japan, and Russia. So 6 parties, they are, if they are positive about reunification, then only reunification could happen. Otherwise, any of them could be spoiler and the reunification may not happen. Unfortunately, at this point of time, when I look at scenario, except South Korea, none of the other 5 countries, they are willing to, they are keen to reunification. US, Japan, which are friendly to South Korea, even China and Russia, if you look at their formal official position, they support reunification. But in reality, they are happy with status quo in East Asia. They have adjusted their foreign policy as per status quo. And if reunification happens, they need to change many things about, recalibrate, reorganize their foreign policy, which they don't want. Why do they not very interested? Why are they not interested? If you look at support, for example, if Korean unification happens, then either America has to withdraw its troops from East Asia, because then right now the justification is that because of North Korea, we are having our troops there. If North Korea is not there, there's no reason to keep troops there. And then I think they don't want to say that they are having those troops for maybe China. They don't want to do that. So their presence is going to be, and their strategic positioning is going to be problematic. For example, for Japan, if South and North Korea, they combine, I think around 23, 24 million people, disciplined labor from northern side, they are going to meet with industrial giants of South Korea. And they can have, like say, right now, if you look at South Korea, 50 million, 24 million North Korean population, smaller country in comparison to Japan, which is 130, 40 million people. So if Korea is reunited, Korea will be a bigger entity, having, you can say, close cooperation, like say, you can say, complementarity of South and North Korea, finance and labor and all those things. I think that would be, you can say, Japan comparative advantage over South Korea will be less. So I can enumerate, for example, North Korea is also not interested, because they know that if at this point of time reunification happens, it's going to happen as per the terms and conditions of South Korea. So they are also, and especially the political, you can say, elites or say military elites of North Korea, they know that if reunification happens, they may be prosecuted for crimes against humanity, war crimes. Because of them, so many things, so many human rights violations, so many other things which are not acceptable to any civilized society has been happening in North Korea. So none of all, we can say, these countries, they are interested in reunification, though they give lip service to this idea. South Korea alone is interested, and even in South Korea, younger generation people, they are not so much attached to northern part of Korea. They feel that, look, we are better off, and throughout their life, they have studied about North Korea as a rival country. So I think because of that, I think there's a very complicated structure there. And I don't feel that any near future, a planned reunification is possible. In long term, something may happen, or accidentally in short term and medium term also something strange may happen. But I don't feel that these complicated issues are going to be resolved easily. They are not that much, you can say, eager for reunification.
Yeah, that reminds me of a random conversation I had with an American diplomat who he didn't say it directly, but he implied a divided Asia, a divided Korea, Korea-Japan animosity is actually good for the United States.
Yes.
You know, the policy of divide and conquer. He didn't say that, but that was the subtext of the conversation. We have, I think, 15 more minutes left. Let me invite those who've not had a chance yet. Crystal McDonald, is that your hand up?
Yes, that's
All right.
me.
Okay.
I have a question. I hear mostly here in Washington more about, I call it fear, that's my own expression, about what happens and what is done in North Korea with regard to nuclear development and so on. And what certainly cannot reduce the tensions is, in addition to the fear of what North Korea is doing, is talking about our military is not as strong as it should be. We need to increase our weapons, our material. Just a few days ago, there was the launching of an aeroplane which can now fly more than 33,000 miles or something like that. So that actually it flew almost around the world. They call it a super bomber. I'm not an expert, but this is just the most recent development of what the US is developing. So all our military increase to be stronger can certainly not be helpful in everything which you think on the other side of where I am living.
Yeah, I think, yes, it's really, because the way North Korean state is organized at this point of time. There was a socialist North Korean state in the beginning, but over the time it became personality cult of Kim Il-sung, and then it had become dictatorial, totalitarian system. The system has no responsibility. It's not rule of a law country. And that kind of country and that kind of leadership, if they are possessing nuclear weapons, which are supposed to be ultimate weapons and sophisticated, they have 6 tests until now. And they are having also all kinds of missiles. Now I think they have also ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. So I think, which is like the latest one, actually they had capacity of around 16,000 kilometers. So I think they can reach up to any parts of mainland America if they are successfully able to have that. We are not very, you can say, sure that how much success they have, means in actual practice, whether those missiles are going to be that you can say sophisticated or not. So if that kind of state is having nuclear weapons, it's really, really a matter of fear, and I think that's really important to acknowledge in the beginning. But at the same time, my general feeling is that there is a military-industrial complex also, especially in America, in other countries also, in India, in Japan, in Korea. It's basically, you'll be surprised to know that India, we have not very good relationship with China. And Indian military, Indian Navy, Indian Air Force, they basically order their weapons in March sometime every year. And there was some survey, some study by some research institute, last 30 years, every year around, because March those orders were decided, and by November, actually, that year, the order basically delivered, something like that. So every year, December to February, December to February, in the 3 months, suddenly the tension, some kind of say problems, they keep emerging on border between India and China. And the report was basically suggesting that deliberately, the military of both India and China, they do that. And media also deliberately, they report that, so that people in both India and China, they are fearful to each other. And finally, they allow more budget for military expenditure. So I think even if we are feared with North Korea is a very difficult problem. Solution is not that only we can consider. American defense capabilities are still far superior than any country in the world. And far superior means, you can say, you must have heard about that, the Americans' defense expenditure is equal to almost number 2 to number 20 country together, and still America is spending more on that. American weapon systems are more sophisticated, more advanced than any of these countries. But yes, they need to keep prepared. They need to be continuously having all those defense preparedness. So I'm not saying that they should reduce budget, or I'm making that kind of suggestion. But I think deliberately to increase their defense budget, there are, you can say, deliberate. So whether North Korea is really a problem, and because of that you are basically having more super bomber or others, or since you need super bomber, then I think you are creating North Korean havoc. So that's one part of my answer. And the second small part would be that if North Korea is a problem, face it, talk to North Korea, resolve. North Koreans also, they can say that they have their own threat perception. Even if those threat perceptions are objectively not true, but let's address them. Why can't, suppose, I can give you one example, why can't America and Japan and South Korea, they can talk to China, they can talk to Russia and say that all 5 countries, we are going collectively, even if North Korea doesn't come forward, we 5 countries, we are going to have a joint no aggression act on North Korea. Said none of us collectively or unilaterally, we are going to attack North Korea in future. That will be quite assuring for North Korea. So you can think about those mechanisms and communicate with North Korea, even if it's a bad regime, even if it's unpredictable. The solution comes through negotiation, talks, and communication, not by, yes, you need to be prepared for any eventuality, but if you are emphasizing too much on that, then I think you are not serving your own purpose.
Yeah, I have another question, if I may follow up. And what do we hear from North Korea about climate change? Is there any thought about it? Can you tell me about it?
I think it's I don't know recent reports about that, but it's generally in very bad shape. Because North Korea is a fuel deficit country, and it's a very cold country. So minimum temperature in winter, it goes up to minus 25 degrees centigrade, sometimes minus 28 degrees centigrade. It's a very cold country, and it's a fuel deficit country. So they don't have enough oil, enough, you can say, gas to warm their houses. And because of that, lots of deforestation happened. They cut the trees, and basically those tree woods are basically used for some kind of producing some kind of heat and some heating system in their own houses and other places. So because of that, lots of deforestation have happened in North Korea, and I think they are not bothered about any global climate change, or say I think all those problems. And we need to, you can say, somehow, in case possible, reach out North Korea, try to convince it. But they may say that, look, we have fuel deficit. If we don't have fuel, what will we do? We are going to die if we don't use. And they create lots of. Actually, 2013, when I went to Korea, North Korea, I remember I took a train from Beijing to Pyongyang. So evening train starts like 3 p.m., 4 p.m. The train starts from Beijing. It reaches Yalu River early morning. So Dandong, China Station, and then Sinichu in North Korea. So early morning, Sinichu to Pyongyang. I went by train and I reached around 3 p.m. there. So almost means 8-9 hours I traveled by train in North Korea, and it was so deserted. Actually, that was March, April. So generally that period is a kind of autumn period. So sometimes situation is like that. But then I think I saw that lots of trees were cut, actually, lots of trees. And when I asked them, then somebody who was helping me there, some guide, North Korean guide, he told me that, look, this tree, we have recent scientific study, and we found that this tea and is flower is basically creating some kind of bad health effect. That's why our dear leader has ordered that all the trees of this variety should be cut from. Basically, I don't believe in his version. I think they wanted to cut the trees and they wanted to have some excuse. And because of that, that kind of study was. So I don't know what is the truth, but it's a in very bad shape, the deforestation issue in North Korea.
Perhaps if it gets worse, it allows us to come in on multi-track diplomacy somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, multi-track diplomacy, right.
We've got
Thank you.
another question, and this might be our last question,
Last.
from Toshikazu Izumi. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And if I can, I would like to share my impression about Mr. Mishra's presentation. It is okay?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay. And thank you, Mr. Mishra, for your presentation. It's taught a lot to me. First, I was deeply impressed. Gandhi criticized An Jung-geun's assassination of Ito Hirobumi. And just now I have just learned from the internet that Mr. An Jung-geun released Japanese soldiers who were taken by a rebellion group after persuading the Japanese soldier about the struggle of Korean people. It was very impressed, and I learned that he was a Catholic.
Right. Catholic.
Yeah. And I realized that we need to know more about Mr. An Jung-geun, not just as an assassin, but in the historical context of Japanese and the Korean colonial rule era, including his personality. That is all I can say now. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I also endorse that idea.
I wonder, the Mr. Izumi-san, he mentioned the very sensitive the one figure between the Korea and the Japan, the like a freedom fighter during the Japanese colonial rule, An Jung-geun, Mr. An Jung-geun. He assassinated, he shot this the respected one, the hero or the in modern history of Japan, the Ito Hirobumi. He wrote or lay the foundation of the constitution. Okay, the new constitution in modern constitution in Japan, and so his face appears in the Japanese bill, okay, money, right, bill, most respected. But from the perspective of Japan, he is like assassinator, assassinator, like a sniper, a kind of assassinator. He shot the Ito Hirobumi at the station, railroad station in Harbin in China, okay, in Harbin, and at the age of 30, around 30 or so, and he was on the spot. He was caught, and he moved to the Li Sun in the prison in Japan, in China. Later, he moved to maybe Japan, and he was executed. And he's mostly he's respected by the many Korean people, but he's the enemy of Japan. But Izumi-san, he mentioned the Anjungun, but he wrote the peace theory of East Asia, right? During his while he was in prison, he wrote this theory, and still we do research his theory, okay, and that's very interesting. This topic, okay, Izumi-san mentioned, okay. Okay. Moderator, your turn.
I think we are almost at time, but I want to hand things over to Sandip if there are any final thoughts or comments.
No, I think nothing special. I'm thankful to all of you for giving your time. And actually, in this forum, it's a very interesting forum where actually you make presentation, but you learn from comments actually, like Anjangan and that issue, or they say Ito Hirobumi, and then like Mr. Kan Mikyo, or say Madam Crystal, and so you learn from the questions. Then actually you lecture. So it's pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. We'll be keep participating in the future also. Thank you.
And with that, my friends, we are at time. I have to agree. There is so much to learn from one another, and I think this is why this network is so amazing. Other than that, thank you to everyone. And I guess I'll just say, may you go in peace.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, give a big applause, okay, to today's speaker. Okay, Dr. Sandip Mishra, thank you again for your regular presentation each session, okay, each year, and it's very informative, okay, informative about the relations between India and the two Koreas, okay, Koreas. And I think the role of India is very important for the reunification of the Korea. I'm sure, okay, I'm sure, very important. And today's moderator, Montai, okay, Professor Montai Datta, in spite of your very, tight schedule, okay, you have a very, this busy schedule today, but you spare your time. Thank you very much. And and also all participants, okay, engaging in your discussion. Okay, before the closing this forum, I have an announcement, and also I'd like to introduce one more time today's newcomer, okay, Professor Christel Gopin, okay, Gopin from the Carter School, and also the George Mason University. George Mason University, very famous for, well known for like a program, like conflict resolution, right? So, okay, the Christel, will you just briefly explain about your program? Like I got this information from the Madam McDonald, you are teaching or the working for the Center for World Religions, Diplomacy and Conflict Resolution. Will you briefly, okay, introduce your program there?
Yes, thank you so much. So I am the Associate Director of, in short, it's CRDC, so it's a long name. But my husband, Dr. Mark Gopin, he has been leading the center for over 30 years. And, you know, he's a professor at the Carter School, just about the same length. And he is an expert in conflict analysis and resolution. And so we have joined forces. You know, I'm helping with him. He has just written a book, Healing the Heart of Conflict and Compassionate Reasoning. He also is taking a great interest on futurism. So as I was as I'm listening to North Korea, South Korea, and India, I'm also very interested in, you know, I was thinking, what would the future look like? You know, what can be imagined, and what is possible as incremental changes, which, you know, my husband also advocates. So thank you for having me. You know, I'm looking forward, you know, to being, you know, coming to your session and learning more. I have learned so much just with this session on North Korea and South Korea and India, and, you know, even the proxy actor of what is possible, where are the possibilities, where are the barriers. And I'm going back with Mati in saying, you know, the importance of well-being, focusing on well-being, focusing on compassion, focusing on hope. And just us coming together gives me great, great hope, even with what's going on in the US, the polarization. I just came from Arizona, you know, heard the sides from Democrat, Republicans, but I'm saying everyday people connect every day. So focusing on that will give us many, many possibilities. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Professor Crystal Gopin, okay, joining us, okay, today. Anytime you can spare time, we welcome you, okay, to our forum. And also, I thank you, Madam McDonald, to, you know, for inviting and you know, recommending friends to this forum, okay, okay. Also, I see the Dr. Manuel Vidal from Spain, okay, and I think Dr. Anunit from Thailand, okay, as I remember, okay. Okay, thank you. And Bernard, okay, thank you. Okay, I will issue the invitation soon tomorrow, okay. Bernard, it's our personal talks, okay. Anyway, thank you. You know, the 2 weeks later, every 2 weeks we hold our conference, this forum. Very invited from Balkan, okay, the Balkan country, because this year in July, my History NGO Forum is planning to hold our annual conference in Balkans, okay, in Balkan, like including Bulgaria, and we are going to travel the Balkan countries, like, you know, the Bosnia, Herzegovina, Croatia, Serbia, Macedonia, and Montenegro, some place, okay, some countries. So would like to learn more about the Balkan situation, Balkan history, Balkan culture. So I invited Dr. Edin Velazic or something from Bosnia and Herzegovina. Okay, he is the member of Euroclio. Do you know the Euroclio? That stands for European Association of History Educators. Okay, it's our European partner, European network. And he is the senior advisor for European integration and international cultural cooperation of this Bosnia and Herzegovina. And his topic is understanding the geopolitical position of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Okay, you remember even in the 21st century, like most you know, some like a tragic you know, incidents, okay, there happen, like we call it genocide or something, or the ethnic conflict, okay, religious conflict in Balkans. So we can learn about this Balkan next 2 weeks later on April 25th. Okay, so also if you can spare time, okay, I would like to see you on 25th. Okay, so
Somehow, may I
okay.
say
Yeah,
something?
sure. Okay.
You mentioned Macedonia, and I would like to point out that Macedonia, the whole part, was part of Greece. There is now the Northern Republic, the Northern Macedonia,
Northern Macedonia.
or also called. So be careful what you say, because the Greeks are very sensitive
right.
to this issue. It's the Republic of Macedonia.
Republic of. Thank you for correcting. Okay, the naming is very important. The naming.
They eat the same things and they have wonderful wines, but politically speaking, there's sensitivity.
Okay, we just
Exactly.
passed by Northern Macedonia and maybe
Or Republic,
the
the
Republic
Republic of Macedonia.
Macedonia. Okay,
But there is also Macedonia, a big region, still of part of Greece. So you have Macedonia in Greece and Republic of Macedonia now politically separated.
Yeah, kinds of conflict. Even the international airport name is Alexander airport or something. But the naming, they have some some kinds of like conflict. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And okay, so everybody, okay, I thank you for your joining today. And until then, okay, 2 weeks later, I hope you can stay healthy and okay, take good care. Okay, everybody, okay.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay,
Bye,
bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye, Christoph.
Okay,
Thank you very
bye-bye.
much.